The theme here at the 2026 annual conference of the Association of Applied and Therapeutic Humor is humor on the edge. So, I might be pushing the envelope somewhat today. Let me get started. Are you sitting comfortably? You may not be sitting comfortably in a minute, because you can expect some racist insults.
Yay.
You can expect me to play fast and loose with pronouns. And I'll be making fun of people with cancer. Think about how that makes you feel. Are you a little uncomfortable? Are you a bit concerned that I might just go a little bit too far? Well, you know what? Let's talk about humor and how it works. It can uplift you, or if it falls flat or is too insulting, it can have pretty negative repercussions. So, we were talking about racist insults. What if I say I am going to make a joke by throwing out a racist insult? Do you think I'd be skating on thin ice by throwing out that racist insult? Even so, I'm going to do it. Here goes. You ready? Hab socially gosh! Anybody know what that means? So this is it. Anybody know? Anybody know what language that is? It's Klingon. It's Klingon. I have to admit I'm a Trekkie, and it is one of the worst insults you can throw at somebody, because it means your mother has a smooth forehead. And you know, one time I threw out this racist insult, and this woman from Earth told me, well, no, that's not true. My mom is over 70 and she's got a really wrinkly forehead. So maybe that doesn't really work for everybody. But you know, if you happen to be black or Jewish, I actually have a much worse insult for you. So, are you ready for that one? This is something that is really insulting to anybody who is black or Jewish, especially women. Did you know that black women and Ashkenazi Jewish women, well, you know, they're much more likely to get breast cancer and die from it than the rest of the population? Isn't that an insult? That's a real insult. That's a real insult. So, does that mean that God is racist and anti-Semitic? Because did you know young black women are twice as likely to die from breast cancer than white women? And there's a genetic flaw common in Jewish women that dramatically increases their cancer risk. I have one of those nice little genes, a lovely little gift from one of my ancestors, the BRCA gene. And I wrote a blog about this, so that's what that link is down there. But I think that's a racist insult. That's a big insult. That nasty little BRCA gene variant that I was talking about not just dramatically increases my risk of breast cancer, but also, because I got breast cancer twice, but also ovarian cancer. And so I don't know, maybe I should just resign myself to my fate by saying, Klumach kach jashvam. And that again is more Klingon, and that means today is a good day to die. Now, you know, it kind of works for me to say that about myself, but I don't think it's a good idea to say something like that, to make that joke to somebody who has a serious illness. That really, that's the difference. You know, I can say it about me, but if you said it, Gina, to me, you said that phrase in Klingon and laughed, I would think, oh, God, she's making fun of me and I got cancer and I don't want to die. But, you know, this is the whole thing about humor. It is something that requires sensitivity, and a joke you might say about yourself to make others feel at ease and lighten the conversation could be really insulting if said by somebody else. And I'm going to give you an example because I'm a host on the Thriving Women TV weekly show Uncomfortable Conversations. And the other day before we went live, the video of one of my co-hosts, Dimitri, suddenly went dark. At the very least, I was concerned because I thought he was going to have technical problems and not be able to host the show. And without even thinking, I said, Dimitri, you've gone all black. He turned his video back on and quipped, I was born that way. Now, Dimitri happens to be African American, and he made us all laugh with that comment. But if any of us would have said that to him, at the very least, it would have been off color. You know, very much so. And, you know, Karen did a wonderful presentation earlier today about appropriate and inappropriate humor. And one of the things that I have in my book, My Wild Ride, the final chapter is called Resting in Peace. It's about death and dying. And I actually put quite a bit of humor in that, you know, because humor makes those kinds of subjects more palatable. And one of the things we discuss in that chapter is, well, you might as well think about what do you want done with your body after you die? There are lots of ways you can deal with your body. And I was saying, well, you know, in this book I say, well, I'd like to be cremated. If it was good enough for my relatives in Auschwitz, it was good enough for me. Now, so that is, and sometimes when I talk about that particular thing, I would say instead, well, if it was good enough for my cat, it's good enough for me. Because even as somebody who's Jewish, that particular joke could land badly for some audiences, even though I'm talking about myself. So that's just one example of, you know, some of the best humor makes the audience feel temporarily uncomfortable, but then it resolves in an unexpected way to make them laugh. And the message here is choose your humor carefully because you have to think about the effect it's going to have on the folks that you're speaking to. And it can be a double-edged sword. It can be used with malice to insult somebody, like making a joke at their expense. Alternatively, it can be used to bring a sense of joy and fun, showing that you aren't taking yourself too seriously. But using humor effectively, especially in the cancer world, it can be a tightrope walk, a bit like walking on eggshells. So my view is the best thing to do is to come from the heart and a position of love, because people laughing together creates a feeling of community and goodwill, even if they're going through difficult times. In fact, especially if they're dealing with any kind of adversity. Seeing humor when you're suffering takes courage, and humor can demolish that fear that you are experiencing, but it does take courage to make the step to try and go for the humor. So, on to those pesky pronouns. Pesky pronouns. Well, there's been a lot of fuss in the past few years over pronouns. So let's see what difference a pronoun makes. And I'm going to use an early version of my book, My Wild Ride, as an example, because I'm going to show you an early draft of the first 2 paragraphs of that book. Let's see. Oh my God, it worked. Amazing. Yes. So this is the original intro to My Wild Ride. Being diagnosed with cancer and facing chemo? Look at it this way. You've been given a chance to take 6 months to a year off without any of the hassle of having to deal with foreign travel. You can catch up on all the books you've missed or wanted to read and all the movies that you've missed at the movie theater, and you might even lose weight without the expense of going to a health spa or a fat farm. What do you think about that?
I like it.
You like it? Well, some folks didn't, so this was the revised version. Wow, I said to myself, look at this way. I now had a chance to take about 6 months off without any of the hassle of having to deal with foreign travel. Of course, for any cancer patient, that assumes you can afford not to work while you're undergoing treatment and that your enlightened employer is keeping your job open for you. I was fortunate to be able to take as much time off as I needed. Perhaps I could catch up on all the books I'd wanted to read and the films I'd missed. I might even lose weight without the expense of going to a health spa or fat farm. So, what do you think? Which one sits better?
This one.
And that's the difference between I and you. And people going through cancer can be very sensitive, as you know, I've been through that. The members of the audience have been through all of that, some of that, and it doesn't necessarily work, especially with this being for a general audience rather than, I know, Karen, you were talking about within the nursing community, you can have different jokes to what you would have when you have the patients around. This is a similar situation. So imagine yourself as a person with life-threatening cancer. You don't want to be necessarily reading something that might be a bit too crass. So I did make those substantial changes to the introduction and included the paragraph that you see now. And so it's the first versus the third person. You know, with cancer, it's better to make fun of yourself than the other person who's going through the disease. But equally, when you are going through cancer, focusing on the I can be really annoying if you're visiting somebody with cancer. And when I was dealing with cancer treatment, people would come in and they would want to share their own adversity or cancer stories. And it became almost like a competition of who had suffered the most. You know, well, yes, I remember going through that and it was so bad, I thought I was going to die. And in fact, when I told a friend of mine that I was going through radiation for my breast cancer, he said, oh, yes, when I went through radiation, I thought I was going to die. I couldn't swallow, I couldn't eat. It was the worst moment of my life. I hated it. I just didn't want to go on. And if I hadn't, this was my second bout of cancer, the second time I was going through radiation. And actually, I was grateful that I'd already gone through radiation for the other breast, because this guy was going through radiation for throat cancer. I was going through radiation for breast cancer, and those are very, very different. Actually, throat cancer radiation is brutal, quite brutal. And although I wouldn't say that radiation of the breast is a walk in the park, compared to throat cancer, it's super different. It's way lighter. So if I had heard this from my friend before going into radiation for the first time, I would have been terrified, absolutely terrified. So these are examples of what you have to do. You have to be really careful when you're talking to somebody with cancer to put yourself in their shoes and think, well, how might they think of this? How might this feel to them? And, you know, I went through a similar process to what I did with the introduction of the cancer book with my working title for it. So let's take a look at the changes I made to the working title. It was originally Hotel Chemo, Learning to Laugh Through Breast Cancer and Infidelity. I thought that was a fine title, but my publisher and dear friend Diane Rappaport, just when we were about to, get this book ready for press and stuff, she went through what ended up being terminal pancreatic cancer. It was horrible. And she was an amazing lady. She did some wonderful things in the world of for musicians. She wrote the book on how to set up your own record label, and many musicians are absolutely they have a lot of gratitude for what she's done for that particular world. But when I spoke to her about this title after she'd been diagnosed, I said, I don't know, this title doesn't feel right to me now. How do you feel about that? Are you laughing through your cancer? And she said, no, I'm not laughing through my cancer. And I said, well, how does it feel? How would you describe it? And she said, oh, it's a wild ride. And that became the title, My Wild Ride. So this is about having that sensitivity, having the sensitivity to be able to appreciate how the cancer patient or anybody going through adversity would really feel from what you say. Okay, da 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 dum. Does anybody know what this might represent in the context of what we're talking about?
Close encounter.
Actually, I haven't got a clue. I just like the picture, and I thought I'd put it in there to keep you awake. It's a wonderful little piece of stained glass. Absolutely fabulous. Anyway, I'm now going to start going into numbers. Numbers. Because I promised to tell you my 6-part program that I used to stop feeling like hell after discovering infidelity. That was the first thing that happened to me before I got my second cancer diagnosis. I found out that my dearly beloved wanted to trade me in for a younger model. She wasn't actually a model, but she was younger. And when I first found out about it, he actually offered me a part-time wife position. He said, I would be perfectly happy spending half of the week with you and half of the week with her. Maybe even, just 2 or 3 days a week with her and the rest of the week with you. And I actually considered that for a while. I didn't want my whole life to collapse. I didn't want to lose my home. I didn't want to lose my relationship. I actually thought about it, wow. But then when I was going through cancer treatment, chemo, and he was at a resort in Europe with his girlfriend, it didn't seem like a part-time wife position was going to work for me. So I developed this plan to get through it, to stop feeling like crap. And I used it actually to get through both infidelity and breast cancer. So let's have a look at what that is all about. Okay, so I developed these 6 steps. You can do them in any order, and you won't necessarily finish one part and then move on to the next, but most likely you'll be doing some of these things simultaneously. And the aim is to become a more complete, creative, and joyful person, with or without a partner. And depending on what kinds of cancer treatment you're going through, with or without your boobs. So this is what I did. Number 1, choosing confidants and mentors. Mentors provide useful advice, and they keep things confidential rather than your life story being the next episode of the local soap opera. And that is important. I mean, I found people were, blabbing about what was going on with me, and I didn't really like that, telling all their friends about what was going on, and no, that doesn't work. Now, confidants can be friends, but they are more than a friend, because if you want to be venting your deepest, darkest thoughts about how crap you feel, some of your friends aren't necessarily going to want to hear that. You're going to have to choose carefully, somebody who's going to be willing to listen and who's going to be offering useful advice. And sometimes those people are paid counselors. And I recommend both a male and a female, because you get very different advice from males as from females. That was very, very important to me, to have confidants of both sexes. So that's number 1. What about number 2? Number 2 is cultivating friends old and new. You need a community. And these are things to think about whatever situation you're in, because you never know when stuff's going to happen. You never know when you're going to need community. And you never know when your husband will disappear, who has been your main support, and you might have let all your friends go because everything was so wonderful with your husband. Everybody needs a community broader than just their significant other. And so it's a time to revisit friends you've let go, do activities to make new friends. And if you're going through chemo or cancer, you might be a little curtailed as to what you can do, but there's a lot of stuff you can do online. And initiate conversations. Even if you are initiating conversations and friendships with people in the same chemo group as you, there are a lot of opportunities to make friends and connections, even when you are going through cancer treatment. And again, it's good to have friends who are both male and female. So this is the most important one for this group here, because You are all laughter specialists. You are all people who realize the importance of humor. Everybody here already knows that Norman Cousins story, about how he managed to get through this excruciating pain from ankylosing spondylitis just by watching comedies. So you need to find friends who bring you up, not down. I let go of a lot of people who were not really helping me, people who seemed to be more depressed than I was, seemed to be more, negative about what I was doing. You got to divorce him. You got to do this. You got to do that. And you're not doing the right treatment. And no, you don't need that. You want people who are going to bring you up, people who will make you laugh, and watch comedies like Norman Cousins did, not depressing dramas. So that when I was invited to go and see Wild with Reese Witherspoon, which is a good movie about her coping with depression on the Pacific Crest Trail, I thought, do I really want to watch a movie all about somebody dealing with depression when I'm going through chemo? I don't think so. So stuff like Guardians of the Galaxy, that was fun, except for that scene where his mom is dying of cancer and has no hair in the hospital. Don't know if you remember that scene. That was not what I wanted to see. The rest of the movie was great, but not that one scene. And even though I'm a former BBC journalist, and I used to always follow the news, I stopped watching the news. Why? Because it's all bad news. Good news is not news. It's all about, extreme stuff that's supposed to create negative emotions in you and outrage and those kinds of things. This is not what I wanted to be having in my life when I was going through chemo and radiation. And actually, I stuck to that. I don't really follow the news that much now, even though I used to a lot. And even though it's sort of, as a former BBC journalist, I should be keeping up with what daily affairs. Now I don't, because it doesn't improve your mood. Whatever's happening out there is happening out there. You have to make your own personal ecosystem peaceful, whatever's happening outside. And there is a big difference between humor and positive thinking. I do have to say that there are these positive thinking Nazis that kind of attack you when you are going through chemo and radiation. And, they say things like, you've got to keep a good attitude because otherwise your cancer won't heal or it'll come back, and you should never make somebody feel bad about feeling bad. It's really important to accept the fact that somebody who is going through cancer, they're going to feel down. They're not going to feel great all the time. They will feel better if they do have humor, if they do have more positive things in their life, but it's absolutely impossible to be positive all the time. And in fact, sometimes when you force positivity on somebody and they have this fake smile and they seem to be coping with everything so well, underneath they may be dying inside, both physically and mentally. So that's the thing. You want to encourage humor, and it's good to stay positive, but accept that you can't stay positive all the time when you're going through difficult times, whether it's cancer or adversity of any kind, or losing your husband, splintering relationships, all of that. Humor is critical, whether you're at work as well as at play. And as so many of our speakers have been saying, humor is humanity and joy. There's a lot in humor that can never be done by AI. Can AI give you a hug and a smile? No. Humans give you a hug and a smile. That's what's important. So let's go to the next point. Love your body. It doesn't mean that you have to be a pin-up. Oh, I love my body. I look like a Playboy pin-up. No, none of. Well, some of you might, but I don't. It's about inner beauty. It's about healthy eating. It's about exercise to banish the blues. And a lot of studies out there are showing that exercise is way more effective to combat depression than antidepressants, which are now being found to have an awful lot of pretty nasty side effects, on top of which, once you're on them, it's incredibly difficult to get off. Exercise, especially outdoor exercise, I found was absolutely key to lifting my mood and feeling better. Now, if you're going through cancer, if your movement is sort of curtailed, you just adjust what you can do. But you can always go have somebody take you for a drive and go outside and smell the grass and see the trees and all of that. That's going to make you feel a lot better. Good sleep habits. That's the final thing about loving your body. Sleep, exercise, diet. And even if you don't have cancer, those three things are very, very key to keeping your well-being well rather than bad. You don't have a bad being, you want to have a well-being. So you need those things. So, number 5, find your passion in the 6-part plan. What makes your heart sing? Humor, guys, that makes your heart sing, right? But maybe it's music, art, volunteering, a business idea. But should you give up your day job? I'll give you an example. Every Saturday morning, I sing with my honey at the Napili Farmers Market. And we're not bad now, we're okay. When we first started, the vendors complained about the music. And in fact, one person, there was a customer that came up to a vendor and he said, this music is terrible. Can I talk to the organizer about getting something else on? These people are terrible. Where's the organizer? And the vendor said, up there on stage. Well, we've got better. But all I'm saying is don't give up your day job. You don't have to give up your day job, but you need something that is a reason to get up each morning. And again, success is not the same as purpose. You don't necessarily get that passion from a business that's earning you big bucks and that's super successful and that's kind of maybe ragging you out and shredding your nervous system. Purpose is something that you feel in your gut you're doing because it makes you feel good and you feel like you're benefiting the world by doing it. Even singing, volunteering, making people laugh, music, art, all of these things. So find your passion. And even if you are not able to go out and do as much as you were able to before while you're going through treatment, there are things you can do that will create passion. You can still sing, you can still do things online that you love. You can go and help with something that you love that doesn't require an awful lot of physical activity. So these are things to consider. And as I said, all of this stuff is for anybody that is going through adversity, because this worked for me going through infidelity and having a splintering marriage, as well as me going through the breast cancer. Okay, this is the final one, and this is a work in progress for everybody. It's very hard to be mindful, but mindfulness means that you are actually living in the present. Because the past is gone, the future doesn't exist, and all we have is now. And if you're focusing on the present, it means you're choosing life and not death. You know, I heard somebody say, if you have one foot in the past, one foot in the future, because you're just churning about what you did before and, worrying about what you do, what's going to happen in the future, well, in effect, you're shitting on the present. Oh. You know? So stay in the present as much as you can. Obviously, it's not something you can do all the time, but it's a way to live rather than die. So I have been talking about this chocolate mindfulness exercise. I'd love to say that I invented this exercise, but sadly I didn't. I am a total chocoholic. And even though, going through cancer, you're not supposed to have too much sugar, and chocolate can be problematic because it has, a lot of sugar, and it has cadmium and lead, some of it. And, I also believe in moderation, whatever works for you. If you get joy from a little bit of chocolate, have the joy. That's my view. If it doesn't work for you, don't have it. But for me, it gave me joy. And so this exercise comes from Britain. They use it for school children to learn mindfulness, to learn how to be less anxious, and to sort of improve emotional regulation and foster awareness of the present. So, if kids can do it, I reckon you adults can do it too. And, you know, as I'm a Trekkie and I've been speaking a lot of Klingon, I could have done it with gach. Know what gach is? They're those bowls of those little wriggling creatures that the Klingons love. But I don't know whether you'd have liked that. And I don't really know where I'd have found any, not on Earth anyway. But instead, we're going to use this. And if you do not have chocolate, if you have the fake truffle, you'll be able to do everything except eating what's inside. Okay? So, the first thing you want to do is just relax. I know it's difficult, isn't it? Sit down. Sit down. Don't smell it. Don't do anything. Just close your eyes. Relax. Feel the energy just sinking down from your head to the feet. Like a little bit of ice melting and going down. Like water going down your body. Just feel relaxed. Let's feel relaxed. Just a couple of minutes. All your stress, all your tiredness, anything that's bothering you, just let it slip down from your head into your feet, down into the ground. Okay. Now you can open your eyes and take a look at the chocolate. Imagine you've never seen something like this before. Take a look at it. Look at the pattern of the wrapper. Enjoy how it feels in your hand. Just feel the weight of it. Kind of crinkle the wrapper.
Oh my gosh.
If anybody needs to have an additional chocolate because something has gone awry with theirs, just put up your hand and we'll have plenty. So look at the colors. Imagine that this is like a work of art that you've never seen before. The gold writing on the wrapper. And if you have other thoughts, just let them drop away and go back to focusing on this beautiful truffle. And what I would suggest is, using both hands, slowly unwrap. Listen to the crinkling noise. You can even put it by your ear. And there it is. Unwrap it. Take a look at that. Now the next thing, if you have the real chocolate, is to enjoy the smell, the scent. Because this exercise is supposed to use all of your senses. Now don't have it right on your nose because you're going to get chocolate all over it otherwise. I mean, that would be fun for everybody else to see, but you might not want to get it right close to your nose. And if I've done it, please let me know. Now I'm just wondering whether you're salivating a little bit, whether you feel a little impatient, whether you really want to have this in your mouth. How do you feel having to wait before you put it in your mouth? Is there some anticipation going on? Well, And of course, the non-chocolate eaters will have something totally different. They will have a kaleidoscopic marble. And that kaleidoscopic marble, as you move it back and forth, will have a pattern on it, a reflection of the room reversed, dancing on the surface of the glass. It's actually very, very cool. So I told you the people that weren't eating chocolate would have something cool, and that's what they have. Because they're not going to have the smelling of it, although I do have some infused marbles as well. But the next thing, what you've been waiting for, is to put it in your mouth, but do not swallow it down quickly. Savor it in your mouth. Feel the different textures, because the external shell of the chocolate will have a different texture to what's inside. And give yourself some time to feel it sort of slowly melt in your mouth. I just wonder how I'm going to be able to talk with this big thing in my mouth now. I'm sure it looks wonderful on the video. Enjoy it. See how it feels on your tongue. You're taking a picture of me at my ugliest here. My mouth is full of this big truffle. Most celebrities refuse to be photographed when they're eating. Not that I'm a celebrity. And there's a reason. Come away from the chair. Keep slowly eating the truffle. 1 minute. See, I'm having to rush it. You're not supposed to rush it. Okay. So, whoops. Trying not to fall all over the place here. People are still, oh great, the longer it takes you to eat that truffle, the more you can experience the variations of flavor within it. So, got a question for you chocolatiers. Was there a difference between the chocolate you ate at the beginning, how that was, compared to the chocolate you just ate now? Anybody want to mention that? Was it different, the one that, Frank?
The second one, I stole Karen's trick and I was smelling it. And she was using it as aromatherapy.
Aromatherapy, but was the second piece of chocolate more enjoyable to eat than the first?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
So imagine if you give yourself the time to enjoy things like chocolate, rather than just gobbling stuff down without even really thinking about what's in your hand, what's in your mouth. How much more pleasure you get from that, and how you can be mindful, even in something as simple as eating a piece of chocolate. So if you would like to do this exercise again, I do have it on my website, and you can follow along. You just have to have a piece of wrapped chocolate to do it with. So there you go. Okay. I do have a couple of mantras that got me through my infidelity issue with my husband. I used to say, well, what should I say? Am I an infidelity expert? No, that sounds wrong. That sounds like I'm into doing a lot of infidelity. No, I am somebody who knows a lot about infidelity from the perspective of somebody who has been cheated upon. But I did have a mantra that I followed when I was going through it, and when I wrote my first book, Adulterous Wife. And that mantra is, the best revenge is to get past the need for it. And the reason why I say that, I looked at all of these revenge websites and people just so vitriolic, and the amount of energy that they were putting into planning revenge strategies rather than using that limited life energy that we all have on moving forward. Do you really want to be churning what's happened to you over and over again? Because when you're planning revenge, you are churning that hurt. It's like somebody's hit you with a mallet and then you decide to hit yourself with a mallet ad infinitum afterwards. You know, the best thing is to get on with your life and have things be so good that you're not even thinking about the guy again, you know? So it's a work in progress for all of us, but that's what I would recommend. And then in the cancer world, as an anal former BBC journalist, it was knowledge is power. I wanted to find out to the nth degree about what the doctors were going to do. If they recommended a therapy, I would negotiate about it. I was prescribed adriamycin for my chemo, along with Taxol, and that drug is known as the Red Devil and creates heart issues and all kinds of stuff like that. Now, I looked up that for my particular type of cancer, I did research as a triple negative cancer that time, the second time I had cancer. Carboplatin was going to be less toxic for me and probably at least as effective for triple negative. And my oncologist agreed to change it. So that was me. Some people might be much happier leaving everything as the doctor. You know, they don't want to second guess the doctor. They don't want to be spending their time and energy doing their own treatment plan. But for me, I felt like I needed to know exactly what was going on. And I did both conventional and alternative therapy for my cancer. And I had it twice. I had it in 2007 on the left side, and then in 2014 on the right side, where it was more serious because I had a little bit of lymph node involvement, and that meant that I had to have chemo, which I was not very happy about. And, you know, it's important to do your research and to know what works for you. And as a breast cancer advocate, as somebody who's gone through breast cancer twice, as somebody who's written a book about breast cancer, which is extremely heavily researched. I mean, I have 70 books that I mention in the bibliography. I also have over 100 articles and studies that I refer to in that book. Although I will say that one of the signature things I do in my books is that in the bibliography, I do always have 3 books with fabulous titles that really exist, but that have absolutely nothing to do with the book. Nobody ever notices anyway, but it makes me laugh. So there you go. So one of the things that I found out that really resonated for me as something I needed to take to do myself was about the compelling evidence that there is a link between bras and breast cancer. It's, wait for it, stronger than the link between smoking and lung cancer. And the book that I read was called Dressed to Kill, The Link Between Breast Cancer and Bras by Sidney Ross Singer and his wife Soma Grismeyer. And when you Google this issue, though, it is definitely, I would say it's a kind of semi-censored issue on Google, because the only research that shows up is the 2014 Hutchinson study in Seattle, which showed no link, but that was only because it had no control group of bra-free women, which would be like studying the link between smoking and lung cancer, and not having any non-smokers to compare to the smokers. So this study had no control group of people who didn't wear bras, and it only included post-menopausal women in whom the effects were far weaker because of something called survivor bias. In that, those women who might be sick or died off earlier from breast cancer wouldn't be included in the study. Only the people that had survived through to post-menopause would be included in there. But there are numerous studies out there, and I do have some on my website, that show that wearing a bra can increase cancer risk dramatically. And in fact, the singers found that, Sidney Ross Singer found that in the populations he looked at, the rate of breast cancer between women who did not wear bras and men was about the same. And, you know, how many men do you know with breast cancer? I mean, it does happen in men, but it's much, much rarer. So one of the things that I was going to show you, is that everybody needs to have some kind of shtick to let people know about whatever it is that they're trying to give a message about. If you have a message, you need something fun that you can do to bring it to people's attention. So in my case, what I do is whenever I give a talk, I advise women to throw away their bras. When I go to yard sales and I find pink bras, I always buy them and throw them, because what I want to say to people is just say no to bras. Frank, you look great without a bra. And this is where they belong, in the trash can. However, I will say, if you are more endowed than I am, I can understand that, sometimes it's sort of uncomfortable. And if you're playing sports, you don't want to be moving more than the ball. So yes, there is a place for bras, but reduce the amount of time you wear them. Make sure they're not super tight, and, don't sleep in them. Most women find it so comfortable, so much nicer to take them off. They start to feel comfortable and they feel more relaxed. So a bra is, in some ways, we had corsets for women to keep them down, and those were pretty uncomfortable, created all kinds of health problems. So corsets were got rid of, and so what else did they have to constrict women? Bras came after corsets. So in terms of feminism, is the bra a sort of male fetish object that we have to wear to please men who don't want to see our nipples, and we look unprofessional if we show our nipples through our fabric? Why? Why can men have their nipples showing and not women? And we all, not all of us, but anybody who's had a kid and breastfed, well, even infants see nipples. They're used to seeing them. So why is it so bad to have your nipples showing through fabric? But if it doesn't work for you to do that, there are alternatives. You can use these little gel petals, put them on your nipples, and then they won't show through the fabric. And I understand if you're going through a professional business meeting, you really want the people to focus on your face and not anything else. But, that's just my thing. And as I said, that's the thing I would say. So, breast cancer affects 1 in 8 women in the US and the UK, and studies link bras to breast cancer. So, just as we've said, the other problem is breast implant illness is very real, and you want to see healingbreastimplantillness.com. Nicole DeRuda has that site, and her Facebook support group to date has over 200,000 members. She was bedridden for about 6 years before she realized that her systemic issues were due to the silicone implants. So a lot of women who go through mastectomies are choosing to go flat afterwards because of the problems of reconstruction. Now, one of the things about breast cancer is you're going to get tons of advice, and do feel free to ignore it. All of us who've gone through cancer are besieged with people, well-meaning but extremely annoying people, who give us advice on what we should do to get rid of our cancer. And, there are people who don't even believe that the breast illness is real. There is actually a genuine study out there. Some Dutch aesthetic surgeons who do breast reconstruction, They did a study and they came to the conclusion that the reason why women complain about breast implant illness is that they are neurotic. I'm serious. This is a real study. And even the FDA now has warnings on breast implants. So, going back to the friendly advice that I received, this is the first cartoon in my book, My Wild Ride. And I got all of that advice from people. Hippy-dippy friend said, chemo and radiation is toxic and doesn't work. And my straight-laced friend said, alternative medicine is pure quackery. And then somebody who I'm going to not mention their name of because, I'll give them a little bit of anonymity. They kind of shouted at me and said, you got cancer because you're too tense. Relax and don't be so negative. And of course, we all know that shouting at somebody is a very good way to get somebody to relax. And then there were the food Nazis. If you don't give up dairy, your cancer will come back. Well, I am a Brit. I have to have real milk in my tea, not any of this fake stuff, OT, soy milk, all these heavily processed, full of seed oils, fake milks. No, I will stick with real milk. So you're going to get all kinds of advice, but you have to go with your gut and do what feels right to you, because there is no one-size-fits-all answer to breast cancer or to cancer of any kind. And just be aware, people will give you all kinds of advice. Doesn't mean you have to listen to it.
What kind of advice did friends and family give you, and how does this compare with the way you would have wanted people to speak to you during a crisis?
A lot of it was to do with who it came from, because I had one friend who was almost like an encyclopedia of alternative medicine. And he gave me a lot of really helpful advice. So I would listen to him. It was like whatever he said was worth a 10 to somebody else's 2. So that was important. Similarly to what I said about building confidants and mentors to help you. You have to get your advice from people you respect, rather than somebody who just, we just tried this supplement and it's great. If you've got to take the supplement because that's going to solve everything. And if you don't, well, your cancer's going to come back. Everybody's going to have their one thing that they think is great and that is almost like the magic bullet to fix everything. But maybe it worked for them, maybe it didn't, but it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So I think you just have... The best thing to do, I think, is to say something like, tell me if you're interested in hearing about something that I did, because I don't want to overload you with information. If I would have done everything that people recommended that I did, that I should do, if I would have taken up everything that people said I should do, I wouldn't have had enough time in the day. I would have needed 72 hours in a day to do what they recommended in terms of therapies and exercises and supplements and practitioners to visit and all of this. There's no way you can do it. There's absolutely no way you can do it. So you have to, in your mind, say, I don't know about this. I don't think I'm going to do that. And have one person who's knowledgeable in the field that you can say, well, I was told about this. What do you think? And they can say, no, that's no good. And the trouble is, when you are sick, you are often seen as a cash cow, both by allopathic and alternative medicine, because some of these things are not necessarily about about having you be cured. It's about, you spending money on something. And that sounds kind of a bit sharp, but that is what sometimes happens. So again, you have to be aware that there are a million cures out there for cancer. Doesn't mean that they work. And you have to go with your gut and do what you think is right. But then if, say, somebody wants to go and do a particular practice that you think is rubbish, but it makes them feel better, then why shouldn't they? And there was a story in Cancer on $5 a Day was the book. And he wanted to do Reiki. He had a Reiki practitioner come in and work on him. And the nurse thought it was complete crap and told him that why was he wasting his time with that? And he said, if it gives me half an hour of feeling more peace in my mind, then it's worth it. So again, it's not just that you shouldn't be judgmental on what they're doing. You should also be aware that you shouldn't be overloading them with potential cures. But of course, again, everything is to do with individual circumstances, because, what if you have a close relative and they seem to be taken advantage by somebody who's got some therapy that really does seem to be a load of crap, but they're spending a lot of time and energy doing it, and you don't think it's going to help. How do you deal with it? That is a difficult issue, and that's something that does often come up in the cancer world. So it requires a lot of sensitivity and a lot of intelligence and a lot of understanding to be able to navigate that particular situation.
Aside from the advice you got, did you appreciate someone simply asking you how you were doing today?
Yes and no, because again, when you have cancer, everybody wants to call up and say, how are you doing? And it's like, well, do I have to be giving them a response? I feel like shit. I hardly know this person. Why should I have to be telling them how I feel? So close friends, but again, if you have a larger community, when you get sick, I tried not to tell people actually, because I just didn't want to get all that coming to me and people saying, oh, I feel so sorry, and they throw their pity at you, and I just didn't want to deal with it. I just wanted to deal with my treatment plan, have a few key people that I interacted with, but I just didn't want to be pestered by folks asking me how I was every 5 minutes. So I think one of the ways you can do it is to make it clear that you don't expect a response when you are saying something like that to somebody, because they will have limited energy, and how do they want to be spending that energy on telling a load of people that they don't actually know very well or even like that much how they feel. Yeah. Oh no, with a close circle, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's good, but sometimes they don't necessarily react the way you want. I mean, I remember one time I got a load of somebody gave me some nice chocolate. Okay, so one of my sons comes over to visit. Well, what does he do? He eats a load of that chocolate. It was for me, not for him, but that's my son. I love him, but he can be he can be difficult sometimes. But I'm just giving you some examples of how you can treat somebody well and badly. And in my book, I actually have cancer etiquette, pros and cons of things that you should do and things that you shouldn't do. And one of the most useless things you can do in many ways is to say, oh, let me know if there's anything I can do. Because the person is going to not really think about what they want. The best thing to do is to say, oh, can I pick up your son from school? Or do you need me to pick up something from the store or whatever, something very specific. So you can say, oh yeah, I really do need that. Or let me know if you need a Costco rundown or whatever it is. Those things are more helpful than somebody just sort of giving a vague, oh yeah, let me know if you need anything. You usually don't really, that's almost like telling somebody that, okay, I just want to give you the impression that I want to help you, but I can't really be bothered to do anything specific. So, did I make the right decisions about my cancer treatment? All I can say is, and that is my Spam-A-Lot badge. Anyway, you can see it right there. I'm not dead yet. That's all I can say. I may not have made the right decisions, but I may have made the right decisions. I really don't know. I'm still here to talk to you. And that's it. Just a little bit of stuff about what I'm doing. This is my next book that's going to come out, The Cheating Ex-Files, 101 Gifts for an Unfaithful Ex-Partner, based on over a decade of research at yard sales and thrift shops around the world, and based on these Christmas gift lists I've published since 2016, and each gift is more outrageous than the previous one. It's not really revenge driven, because a lot of those things you can't even get, because I found some very wild and weird stuff. If you'd like to find out more about that, take a look on my website, and you'll be able to read all the previous blogs. And then, that's me. You can find out more about what I do. I've got my cards out there. I've got my books to see. The books are on sale in the bookstore if you'd like them. So there you go. That's me, and that's the end of it. And thank you so much for coming. And I also want to thank Amber, my dear friend Amber, 4th-stage breast cancer survivor, for doing the video. And I really want to thank you all for coming. We all need more humor in our lives. And one way to get through difficult times is humor. I mean, I'm a Brit. I should say you need to just keep a stiff upper lip. That's how you get through it. But no, humor. Humor, heart, love, empathy, gratitude, and accepting that everything is impermanent. But sometimes things will end and you'll get something better coming along. So there you go.
Well, I think all of us are filled with gratitude that CJ is still amongst us. Yes. And let's give her another round of applause.
Thank you.
And on behalf of AATH, a gratitude gift.
Oh, thank you. That's great.
And again, thanking her for being here to give us all this very wise advice.
Yep. And this goes back here. Can I walk off with $1 million? Somebody left it there. If there's a few, yeah, I mean, if there's money hanging around, I'm going to pick it up. All right.